Oh hi.
The United States of America, the state in North America. The area minus 9.5 million km. Asterisk 3. The fourth place in the world. The population, a little more than 333 million people. 2021 assessment. The third place in the world. The USA has the federal form of the device, administratively is divided into 50 states and the Federal District of Columbia. A number of island territories also is under their supervision. Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam and others. The capital, the city of Washington. District of Columbia. And the largest on population is the city of New York. The United States border on Canada, in the south and the north, with Mexico, also have sea border with Russia in the west. We're washed by the Pacific Ocean from the west, the Atlantic Ocean, from the east and the Arctic Ocean, from the north. The United States of America were formed in 1776 when merging 13 British colonies which declared the independence. The War of Independence continued till 1783 and terminated in a victory of colonists. In 1787 the Constitution of the USA, and in 1791, the Bill of the Rights which significantly limited powers of the government concerning citizens was adopted. In 1861 contradictions between slaveholding southern and industrial northern states led to the beginning of 4-year civil war. The universal ban of slavery and also restoration of the country after the split which arose at association of the southern states in confederation and the announcement of independence turned out to be consequence of a victory of northern states. Up to World War I, the foreign policy activity of the USA was limited to interests in territories of North, Central and South America, agrees to Monroe Doctrine formulated in 1823. After World War I, the United States Congress didn't agree to the entry of the country into the international organizations. For example, in the League of Nations and the Court of International Justice at her. That limited a role of the USA in world politics. However, participation of the country in the anti-Hitlerite coalition considerably strengthened the influence of the USA on the world scene, and from the second half of the 20th century the country became a kernel so-called First World. In 1945 the USA became the first nuclear power and the first and only country using nuclear weapon in military operations. Atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And since 1946 they were in a condition of global opposition from the USA lasting prior to the beginning of the 1990th years when the Soviet Union stopped the existence. The USA is the armed forces having the most powerful nuclear potential on the planet on the cumulative number of the developed warheads, but the second place after Russia on total number of nuclear warheads, including the largest navies in the world. Take constant place in the Union Security Council with the veto. Are the founder state of the North Atlantic Alliance. NATO. Some are founders of the United Nations, the World Bank. The International Monetary Fund, the Organization of American States. OAS. And other international organizations. The United States, the advanced country which is the largest economy of the world on nominal DDD and second in DDD. PPS. Though the population of the country makes only 4.3% of universal, Americans possess about 40% of cumulative world wealth.
The United States take the leading positions in the world on a number of socioeconomic indexes, including the average salary acre, DDD per capita and labor productivity.
While the economy of the USA is post-industrial, is characterized by prevalence of services sector and economy of knowledge, the manufacturing sector of the country remains to the second largest in the world. National economy makes about a quarter of world VVV and makes a third of global military expenses. That is the USA by the main economic and military power of the planet. Besides, the USA has the greatest political and cultural influence in the world and also is the leader in the sphere of scientific research and technological innovations and now is considered as the only superstate of the planet.
In 1507 the German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller published the world map on which the Earth of the Western Hemisphere were called America in honor of the Italian researcher and the cartographer Amerigo Vespucci. It was the first use of a toponym America. The first documentary confirmed use of the name United States of America is the letter of January 2, 1776 written by Stephen Moylan, George Washington's assistant.
Addressing in the letter the Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Redan, Moylan expressed a wish to bring full and sufficient powers of the United States of America to Spain for assistance in Revolutionary War.
The first known publication of the name United States of America, in the anonymous essay in the Virginia Gazette newspaper which appeared in Williamsburg, the state of Virginia, on April 6, 1776. The second version of Articles of Confederation. The first constitutional document of the USA.
Prepared by John Dickinson and finished not earlier than June 17, 1776 contained the text.
The name of this confederation will be United States of America.
The final version of Articles of Confederation sent to the states for ratification at the end of 1777 contains the offer. The name of this confederation is United States of America.
In June 1776 Thomas Jefferson wrote a phrase United States of America capital letters in heading of the initial draft copy of the Declaration of Independence. This draft copy wasn't published till June 21, 1776, and isn't clear whether it was written to or after Dickinson used the term United States of America in the draft Articles of Confederation of June 17. The short form of the name of the country, United States, also is standard. Other common forms of the name of the country in English also are United States, USA, and America. A colloquial form is United States of A. And, at the international level, States. In Russian, respectively, States. The name Columbia, popular in verses and songs of the end of the 18th century, comes from a name of the pioneer of America Christopher Columbus. In toponymy of the USA it was enshrined in the name, Federal District of Columbia. Initially official name, United States, had only the form of plural. The United States are, for example, in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the USA ratified in 1865.
The form of singular, the United States became popular only after the end of Civil War in the USA. A standard form is singular form now. The multiple form remains only in an idiom, these United States. English, these United States.
The difference between the only thing and plural plays an important role as emphasizes that it is about the uniform state. It acronym for citizens of the United States, Americans. In English, the word American seldom belongs to the subjects or objects which aren't connected directly with the United States. The main territory of the USA, called continental states, is located on the North American continent and stretches from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific Ocean in the west. In the south of the USA border on Mexico, in the north on Canada. Besides, 2 more states are a part of the USA.
In the extreme northwest of the American continent there is the state of Alaska, which is also bordering on Canada.
The border with Russia passes through the Bering Strait. In the Pacific Ocean there is the state of Hawaii. The USA also possesses a number of islands in the Caribbean Sea. For example, Puerto Rico. And in the Pacific Ocean, American Samoa, Midway, Guam and others. Under this the management of the USA there is, but doesn't enter them, a number of the island territories having various status. In the territory of uninhabited Palmyra atoll the Constitution of the USA completely works. Other territories have own main legislation. The largest of such territories is Puerto Rico. In the main territory of the country to the west from the Atlantic coastal plain the Appalachian Mountains, behind which Central Valley, 200-500 m over ocean level. The plateau the Great Plains, 600-1500 m, is located where stretched. Almost all west is occupied with the mountain Cordillera system. As the country is located in a large territory, in her practically all climatic zones, from the Arctic climate in the north of Alaska to tropical in the state of Hawaii and in the south of Florida presented. Subsoil is rich with stocks of various natural minerals, including stone and brown coal, iron and manganese ore.
The Cordilleras, the Colorado Plateau, the Great Plains and Gulf Coastal Plain possess fields of copper, zinc, lead, silver, chromite, vanadic, tungsten, molybdenite, titanic, polymetallic, uranium and mercury ores, and also gold, sulfur, phosphates and other chemical raw materials.
The rivers which form deep canyons belong to pools of the water sources flowing into the Pacific Ocean. Mississippi, with inflow of Missouri. One of the longest river systems of the planet, was stretched on 6420 km. On border with Canada there are the Great Lakes, Top Gurn, Michigan, Erie, Ontario. Slopes of the Cordilleras are covered with dense coniferous forests, the Appalachians, the woods from broadleaf breeds. There is almost no prairie left. In the north of Alaska tundra vegetation is widespread. The abundance of moisture favors to development of the most various vegetation in Pre-Atlantic regions and the Appalachians, and especially forest vegetation. Trees don't meet only on naked rocks or in low marshy places. The high cane and mosses grows in the last. The Appalachian flora differs in a big variety of types, including tree species. Here the American types of a chestnut and a plane tree, a bitternut, a magnolia, a tulip tree meet. The forest area of New England is similar to tree species to the seaside provinces of Canada.
In the north of her surrounds area of pines with the important representative a pine Weymouthii.
The area of deciduous trees extends approximately to the valley of the Allegheny River, serving as a border of two vegetable areas, Pennsylvania and pre-Mississippi, but generally differentiation it isn't sharp, and the same tree species meet both in northern and in the southern pre-Atlanticesti areas, despite distinction of climate here. Coastal sandy strips and marshy lowlands of the southern pre-Atlanticesti states are covered with pine forests.
Near pines also huge cypresses with the direct trunks reinforced at the bases like a bulb and leaning on strong shoots of an elevated part of the rhizome rise, his kins Horabrasni respiratory appendages,
of which did beehives for bees stick out of an underground part of a trunk. Branches of cypresses are covered with the gray-haired Spanish beard. The woods of East Part are rich with an underbrush, lianas and other climbers. In forests of South Carolina and Georgia, orange trees, a catalpa, a Labrador tea meat patching. Florida vegetation already tropical. Any of the countries of a moderate belt, except the countries of East Asia, has no such richness and a variety of flora as the USA. In the Central Basin, from the Appalachian Mountains to prairies of Illinois, before the infinite woods which area equal to space of France, Spain and Italy combined, and nowadays strongly rarefied by the person, consist almost only of deciduous breeds, an oak, an ash tree, an elm, a bitternut and others. In the north of them limits a belt of a pine Weymouthii, in the southern Appalachian part, area of a fir balsam, and still to the south, the Gulf of Mexico has an area of a pine marsh and a marsh cypress. To the west of the wood are interrupted already in such pre-Mississippi states as Illinois, nicknamed the Steppe State, and vast spaces of meadow steppes, prairies. Begin. The prevalence of grass vegetation, with coloring of meadows in the spring in red color, in the summer in blue, and in the fall in yellow. According to some, depends on climatic conditions, according to others, on a Zooporcupras nest. However, there are also such places where the former prairies grew with the woods, for example, in a Kentucky River basin green and on the plain of Missouri near St. Louis. Flora of prairies, now cut on fields with public roads, with more dense and high vegetation. To the west from Mississippi there are territories of the Great Plains with more poor vegetation, owing to dryness, than in prairies. Still further, rising to the Rocky Mountains, there are already desert steppes in which the Chernobylnik, especially on saline lands behind the river Arkansas, prevails. Here thickets of cactuses, thanks to which the Llano Estacado area resembles slopes Mexican Sierra Madre begin. Still to the west, but only it is exclusive in mountains, forest areas begin again. But it is not the dense woods of East Part. Trees here not so vetused, there is no underbrush, lianas are rare. And the woods resemble rather parks, than virgin forests of Kentucky and Virginia. In the valley of Mississippi, thanks to an extreme of temperature and hot summer with heavy summer rains, almost tropical plants in such places where average temperature is much lower than in other countries under the same latitudes, for example, the sugar cane, a cotton, corn yielding a plentiful harvest breed. Flora of the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Slope is very various. from the top Missouri to the uplands of Texas and from the low plain of Colorado to Sierra Nevada, on limmy and saline areas cactuses and a chernobylnik grow, reaching on high uplands of huge height. In the southern parts of the same area prickly bushes reach considerable height. Climbing above the Rocky Mountains, there is a juniper belt, further pines. On the Pacific slope, thanks to influence of damp western winds, mighty coniferous vegetation with her huge representatives developed. She covers high valleys and slopes Sierra Nevada, goes north to British Columbia and Alaska, branching on the eastern states Idaho, Montana and Wyoming. Here Menzies' pseudo-hemlock reaching 80 and even 100 m of height prevails. The sequoia of a bigger height grows in coastal ridges. She forms the huge woods near the Russian River. Subsoil is rich with stocks of various natural minerals, in particular, stone and brown coal, iron and manganese ore.
The Cordilleras, the Colorado Plateau, the Great Plains and Gulf Coastal Plain possess fields of copper, zinc, lead, silver, chromite, vanadic, tungsten, molybdenite, titanic, polymetallic, uranium, mercury ores, gold, sulfur, phosphates and other chemical raw materials.
1565, Spaniards founded the first European settlement in the territory of the modern USA, the city of St. Augustine.
1585, foundation of Colony Roanoke, the first unsuccessful attempt of the British colonization of America. 1607, the first constant colony of British in North America, Jamestown, Virginia, is founded. 1609, Spaniards found Santa Fe, the beginning of serious expansion of the Spanish colonization on the southwest of the modern United States. 1620, the first in New England is based, the historic center of the USA, colony, Plymouth.
1623, foundation of colony New Hampshire.
1626, Dutchess found New Amsterdam, the capital of the Dutch possession in North America which became subsequently New York. 1630, the basis the British Puritans of colony of the Massachusetts Gulf which capital, Boston, became the largest city of the British colonies in North America.
1634, the basis the English Catholic immigrants of colony Maryland. 1636, the Baptists expelled from colony of the Massachusetts Gulf found colony Rhode Island.
1638, Swedes found the colony in the territory of the modern state of Delaware.
Less than in 20 years the colony passes under control of the Netherlands. 1638, foundation of colony Connecticut, natives of colony of the Massachusetts Gulf. 1670, foundation of the British colony Carolina, divided in 1729 into two colonies, South Carolina and Northern Carolina. 1682, the announcement of the Basin of Mississippi, possession of the French king.
1682, the Quaker William Penn founds colony Pennsylvania which first capital, Philadelphia, became the capital of the joint colonies during the War of Independence and the first capital of the USA.
1701, the fort basis Detroit, the largest point of the French colonial expansion near the Great Lakes.
1718, the French found New Orleans which became the center of advance of the French colonization in the territory of the modern USA.
1724, foundation of the most southern British colony in North America, Georgia. 1763, the French found St. Louis, the major strong point on average the Mississippi Current.
1769, Spaniards found San Diego. It becomes the beginning of the Spanish colonization of the top California. On December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party, the beginning of the War of Independence of the USA. 1774, the First Continental Congress, the beginning of open opposition of North American colonies and the mother country. 1775-1783, the War of Independence, which is also called the American Revolution. 1784, foundation of the first Russian settlement in the Bay of Three Prelates on the island of Kodiak. On September 1787-17, the Constitutional Convention, called in Philadelphia, adopted the Constitution of the USA. On September 1789-25, adoption of the Bill of the Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the USA guaranteeing basic rights and freedoms of citizens. 1789, the first election of the President of the USA. George Washington, who received 100% of an electoral vote, becomes the first United States President. 1799, foundation of the Russian-American Company, the beginning of complex development of Alaska by Russia. 1800, transfer of the capital of the USA from Philadelphia to Washington. 1803, the Louisiana Purchase, acquisition at Napoleonic France of the French possession in North America, as a result of which the territory of the country doubled. 1804, the basis of Novorkhanghelsk, future capital of the Russian America. 1812, the basis of Fort Ross, the most southern point of the Russian expansion in America. 1812-1815, Anglo-American War. 1816-1817, the Russian fortress on the Hawaiian Islands is created. 1818, the agreement with Great Britain on definition of border between the USA and the British possession in the basin of Mississippi, as a result of which to the United States the part of the territory of Minnesota and Northern Dakota departed. On February 18, 1921, Adams-Onis's agreement on purchase of Florida for $5 million is ratified. 1820, the Masurisky Compromise, which allowed to keep balance between the North and the South 3 more decades. 1823, the first statement of the doctrine of Monroe as fundamental foreign policy concept of the USA. 1828, foundation of Democratic Party of the USA. On May 1830, 28, the U.S. Congress adopts the law on deportation of Indians of East Coast of the USA on the west to future Oklahoma. 1841, sale de Fort Ross to the United States citizen John Sutter. On December 1845, 29, accession of the Republic Texas to the USA as the state. 1846, accession under the agreement with Great Britain territories Oregon, the northwest of the modern United States. 1846-1848, the American-Mexican War. 1846-1848, resettlement of Mormons from Illinois to Utah, one of the most grassroots and organized resettlement movements in the west of the USA. 1848-1855, the gold rush in California promoting fast settling by English-speaking immigrants of the American West. 1850, the law on capture of runaway slaves in all territory of the USA as a compromise with the South on the issue of acceptance in the Union of California as free staff. 1853, the Contract Godzina, acquisition of a part of territories of modern states by the United States, Arizona and New Mexico. Final establishment of Southwest Frontier. 1854, foundation of Republican Party of the USA. On May 1854, 30, adoption of the Act by the American Congress Kansas-Nebraska, which broke balance between northern farmer and southern slaveholding states. 1854-1856, the Civil War in Kansas, which became a rehearsal of Civil War. 1857-1858, war between Mormons and the federal government in Utah.
1859 John Brown's revolt in Virginia mined slavery. 1861 secession of slaveholding states from the Union. 1865 Civil War. 1867 purchase of Alaska from the Russian Empire. 1898 the Spanish-American War, as a result of which the USA received Philippines, Hawaii, Puerto Rico and some other territories. Cuba became dependent on the USA up to the Cuban Revolution in 1959. On December 1913, 23 creation of the Federal Reserve System. Years. 1917. The Act of Accession of the Hawaiian Islands was adopted on August 12, 1898.
On April 6, as a result of so-called Zimmerman's telegram, the USA enters World War I on the Party of the Entente.
Punishment up to 20 years of prison for distribution of false information about the United States Armed Forces with the purpose to interfere with their operations, to cause a revolt or to interfere with enrollment in army, was established by the law on espionage. 1929 The beginning of the Great Depression in the USA, one of the most serious shocks in the American history, which had a huge impact not only on economy, but also on the culture of the country. 1940 Adoption of the Act of Smith. On December 1941, 7 Attack of Japanese on Pearl Harbor, the USA enters World War II, having declared on December 8 War of Japan. 1945. On August 6 and 9 atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. About 250,000 people, mainly civilians, perish. On August 10, Japan expresses readiness to be given to the countries of the anti-Hitlerite coalition. On August 15, the Emperor Hirohito broadcast the announcement of capitulation. A victory day over Japan. VJ Day. 1950-1953 The War in Korea. 1960. The Campaign on the Pentagon, a protest action mines the Vietnamese War, on October 21, 1967. October Nationalization in Cuba, the property of the American companies. 1961. On January 20, John Kennedy's introduction on the United States presidency. On May 5, subspace flight of Alan Shepard by the Freedom 7 ship. 1962. On February 3, introduction by John Kennedy of full embargo on trade with Cuba. 1963. May, Massachusetts actions of the black population of Birmingham. State of Alabama. Mined racial discrimination. On November 22, murder of the President John Kennedy. 1964-1973 The Vietnamese War. On July 1969, 21, the astronaut Neil Armstrong for the first time landed on the Moon. 1973, March. On August 1974, 9, the Watergate scandal, the President Richard Nixon with a shame leaves the White House. On January 1986, 28, death of the Challenger shuttle. 1987. On June 12, it to destroy an appeal of Ronald Reagan acting near the Berlin Wall to Mikhail Gorbachev. On October 19, Black Monday. The Dow Jones Index dropped by 22.68%. 1991, the war in the Persian Gulf, liberation of Kuwait from the Iraqi occupation. On April 1992, 30, on May 2, a revolt of the Afro-Americans in Los Angeles. 1992-1994, peacekeeping operation in Somalia.
1999, the military operation Mines Yugoslavia.
2001, act of terrorism on September 11. 2001, the beginning of the military operation in Afghanistan continuing so far. On February 2003, 1, death of the Columbia shuttle. 2003-2011, the Iraqi war. 2005, September, the Hurricane Katrina led to break of dams, flooding of the city New Orleans, and followed for these Massachusetts riots and marauding. 2007, mortgage crisis in the USA. 2008, September, the beginning of the global financial crisis in the USA.
2011, March-October, the military operation Mines Libya.
2014, September till present, participation of the USA in the civil war in Syria. 2016, November-December, protests of the minding Donald Trump. 2019, May till present, the conflict in Iran. 2020, January till present, distribution of COVID-19 to the USA. 2020, May till present, protests in the USA after George Floyd's murder. On January 2021, 6, occupation of the Capitol. The United States of America consist of 50 states which are equal territorial subjects of the Federation, the Capital Federal District of Columbia, and the incorporated and organized territory Palmyra Atoll. Each state has the constitution, the legislative, executive and judicial authorities. The majority of names of states come from names of Indian tribes and names of kings of England and France. The states are divided into districts. Smaller administrative units. Smaller than the state, but not smaller than the city. Except for 5 districts. Where is a part of the city of New York. Everything, according to Bureau of an United States Census, in the country there are 3141 districts. The smallest number of districts in the state of Delaware. The greatest in the state of Texas. 254.
Powers of administration of districts and relationship with municipal authorities of the settlements located in their territory strongly differ from state to state.
Municipalities manage local life of settlements. States of the USA. Idaho, Iowa, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Wyoming, Washington, Vermont, Virginia, Wisconsin, Hawaii, Delaware, Georgia, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, California, Kansas, Kentucky, Colorado, Connecticut, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Michigan, Montana, Maryland, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, New Mexico, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Northern Dakota, Northern Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, South Dakota,
South Carolina,
Utah. The first people. The Indian tribes migrating from Siberia to Alaska occupied the territory of the USA about 10,000 years ago, and their descendants remained the prevailing ethnic component until the end of the 17th century. The modern population of the USA, however, reflects genetic heritage of Aboriginals as in the main way modern inhabitants, descendants rather recent. The 17th-20th century of immigrants from Europe, mainly Western, and Africa much less. Full authority only the children of immigrants who were born in the USA acquire to be called Americans. In the country clear split into foreigners and natives between whom there is a considerable cultural and language distance remains. However, internal division is also limited to this distinction. Americans of the USA, the heterogeneous nation with diverse racial structure. The Caucasian race, natives of the United Kingdom, Germany, Ireland and other European countries is dominating in every respect and regions. Except state of Hawaii. No. Further the Negroid race, Mongoloid race, Americanoid race and other of whom over a third of the population is the sharer distinguished.
Dynamics of population following.
According to these bureaus of a census of the USA, the native language, most widespread in the USA, English. In 2009 to them as 228.7 million Americans knew the native language 5 years. 80.0% or more senior. Spanish is native for 35.5 million residents of the USA. 12.4%. Russian holds the 9th place on number of carriers in the USA, over 882,000 people. 0.31%. On prevalence it concedes Chinese. 2.6 million. Tagalog. 1. 5 million. To French. 1.3 million. Vietnamese. 1.3 million. To German. 1.1 million. And Korean. 1.0 million. The largest number of Russian-speaking Americans lives in the state of New York. People are 30.98% of all native speakers of Russian. The most smaller in the state of Wyoming. 170 people, or 0.02%. The top 10 of states where Russian is widespread also includes California, New Jersey, Illinois, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Washington, Florida, Maryland and Oregon. A rather large number of natives of Siberia and from the Far East lives in Northern California. The highest specific weight of Russian-speaking inhabitants on Alaska. About 3% in a varying degree understand Russian, and about 8.5% profess Orthodoxy. It is a consequence of former accessory of the territory of the state of Russia. In the state of Hawaii, English and Hawaiian have the status official. In the state of New Mexico, the law which provides the use of English and Spanish, in Louisiana, English and French works. At the same time, any of languages isn't called official. The island not incorporated territories with the associated status. Actually, overseas possession of the USA. Along with English provide official recognition to languages of Aboriginals. Samoan and are recognized, respectively, on American Samoa and Guam. Carolinian and are recognized on the Northern Mariana Islands. Spanish is official language of Puerto Rico. According to Bureau of an United States Census, about 82% of Americans live in the cities or suburbs. City agglomerations. Half of them live in the cities with the population over 50,000 people.
In the USA, 314 cities with the population more than 100,000 people, 10 cities with the population more than 1 million inhabitants, and 4 cities which population exceeds 2 million people.
New York, Los Angeles, Chicago and Houston.
The First Amendment to the Constitution of Shaw, adopted on December 15, 1791, proclaims this establishment, which was understood by founding fathers as the ban on establishment of the state religion, like what took place in Great Britain. According to the research conducted in 2002 by Pew Global Attitudes Project, the USA, only of the developed countries where most of the population was told that the religion plays very important role in their life.
The American government doesn't keep official statistics on religion. According to World Factbook for 2018, the religious structure of the USA looks as follows. Protestants minus 46.5% of the population. Catholics minus 28%. Prevail in southwest and northeast states. Mormons minus 1.6%. Prevail in Utah. Picks of other Christian faiths minus 0.9%. Jews minus 1.9%. Muslims minus 0.9%. Agavist minus 0.8%. Buddhists minus 0.7%. Hindus minus 0.7%. 1.8% others. Not relating to one religious group minus 22.8%. According to the Research Center Pew Research Center, Protestants in the USA are distributed on religious groups as follows. Baptists minus 15.4% of the population. 49.1 million. Belong to the largest religious organizations, Southern Baptist Convention. Southern Baptist Convention. 16.4 million people. Independent Baptists in Evangelical Tradition. 8 million people. American Baptist Church of the USA. American Baptist Churches USA. 4.8 million people. Methodologists minus 4.6%. 14.7 million. Pentecostals minus 4.6%. 14.7 million. Lutherans minus 3.5%. 11. 2 million prevail in northern and South Dakota. Presbyterians minus 2.2%. 7 million. Restaurationists minus 1.9%. 6 million. Anglicans minus 1.3%. 4.1 million. The Movement of Sanctity minus 0.8%. 2.5 million. Independents minus 0.6%. 1.9 million. Adventists minus 0.6%. 1.9 million. The number of Orthodox Christians in the USA is about 0.55% of the population. In the USA, the Autocephalous Local Orthodox Church, the Orthodox Church in America, PSA, which received autocephaly from Russian Orthodox Church in 1970, works.
According to PSA and the World Council of Churches, its number is 1 million people.
Independent researchers total from 85 to 115,000 believers of PSA and SHA. Also in the USA, a number of Orthodox Church structures of other jurisdiction works. The largest of them, American Archiepiscopia, Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, Patriarchal Arrivals, Russian Orthodox Church abroad, under the Constitution of the USA adopted in 1787, certain powers for implementation of the government are delegated to the federal United States government.
The state powers which aren't determined for transfer to maintaining the federal government by the Constitution are carried out by states of the USA. In the Constitution of the USA, the principle of division of the authorities by which the federal government consists of the legislative, executive and judicial authorities operating independently of each other is underlain.
The supreme body of legislature, the two-chamber U.S. Congress. The lower house, the House of Representatives. The upper house, the Senate. The supreme body of executive power, the United States President. The President, the head of state, the Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces. See the list of United States Presidents. There is also the Vice President's post. The supreme body of judicial authority, the United States Supreme Court. The main political parties, Republican and Democratic. Also there is a set of other, smaller parties.
The foreign policy of the USA is directed to achievements of two main objectives, on safety of the state and its citizens and on ensuring welfare of citizens of the country.
Nominal DDD of $20.66 trillion. The third quarter 2018. DDD growth 3.5%. The third quarter 2018. Employment of the population of 62.9%.
November 2018.
Unemployment of 3.7%.
November 2018.
Inflation of CP is 2.2%.
November 2018.
Poverty of 11.8%. 2018. Public debt of $21 trillion. 2018. Equity of households of $109 trillion. The third quarter 2018. The New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street, a symbol of financial power of the USA. World Trade Center 1, the highest building in the Western Hemisphere. The economy of the USA is the largest economy of the world in nominal terms, making not less than a quarter of world GDP the last 50 years. The American economy has very high level of transparency. Public authorities of the USA with a frequency of times in every week, 2 month, quarter and year publish tens of different statistical reports and economic indicators.
According to the legislation, some of them are subject to revision during the subsequent periods, depending on obtaining new data.
The monthly reports on DDD and on personal income and expenses of the population published by Bureau of the Economic Analysis, for example, belong to the reports which are subject to revision. Revision of indicators towards increase or decrease, not a rarity. Besides 10 state, tens of indicators private,
Commercial and public.
The organizations are published in the USA. So for example, for a long time of the existence were credible such indicators as the report on unemployment from the ADI Company, the index about mood of the consumer of the University of Michigan, Case-Shiller's index from the Standard & Poor's Agency, etc.
National economy is one of the most diversified national economies of the world and holds leadership in world economy the last 100 years. However, since the beginning of the old years, owing to the accelerated globalization and growth of economies of developing countries, her influence in world economy decreased a little.
In 2019, consumer spending made 68% of the American economy. As of August 2010, more than 154 million people belong to the American Human Resources. The government is the largest employer of the country. More than 21 million people are employed in the state companies and structures. The largest sphere of employment among the private companies, healthcare and social security. 16.4 million people. About 12% of workers consist in labor unions. In Western Europe, -30%. The quantity of jobs on productions was reduced by 5 million since 2000. The economy of the USA was strengthened by creation of the Free Trade Zone with Canada and Mexico, NAFTA, in 1994-2008. The volume of commodity export of the USA to the NAFTA countries in 1993-2013 increased more than by 5 times. From $141.8 billion to $529.0 billion. The cost of commodity import of the USA from the NAFTA countries for the same period increased more than by 4 times. From $158 billion to $625 billion. The public debt of the USA makes more than $21 trillion. Since 2012, the public debt of the USA exceeds the annual volume of GDP of США. The global economic crisis of 2008 considerably affected the United States. The quantity of the made products is still lower potential. Crisis provoked rise in unemployment, which is nowadays reduced, however still is above pre-crisis level. Falling of consumer confidence, growth of amount of bankruptcies, aggravation of tax crisis, inflation growth, increase in prices for fuel and products. The industry of the USA differs in the high level of production and territorial concentration. In her all existing industries focused on release both the Massachusetts and limited products are presented. The industry gives 2004 less than 20% of GDP of the country. Services sector -79.4%. Agriculture, about 0.9% of GDP.
According to the International Monetary Fund, for 2012 the share of industrial production and services in structure of GDP of the USA made 22.1%.
$3.23 trillion. And 76.8%. $11.2 trillion. Respectively. Agriculture makes less than 1% of VVV, however the United States are the world's largest producer of corn and soya. The USA, the main developer and the producer of genetically modified food, is created more than a half of world volume of gene-modified grain here. On the area of 48 states of 35% of the territory it is used as pastures, 28% are covered with the wood and 21% of the territory are used under agricultural needs. According to the World Bank in 2012 the USA, with a huge separation, won first place in the world on export of wheat. 32.8 million tons worth $11.1 billion. As of 2014 export of the USA makes $1.45 trillion. The second place after the People's Republic of China. An import of $2.19 trillion. One place in the world. Export. 1.45 trillion. Oil products, cars, planes, helicopters, spare parts for cars, medicines. Main buyers. Canada. 17%. Mexico. 13%. People's Republic of China. 9.2%. Japan. 4.6%. Germany. 4.2%. Import. 2.19 trillion. Crude oil, computers, cars, oil products, spare parts for cars, mobile phones, the broadcasting equipment. Main suppliers. People's Republic of China. 20%. Canada. 15%. Mexico. 13%. Japan. 5.9%. Germany. 5.5%. South Korea. 3.2%. The USA possesses very developed transport, engineering and other infrastructure for which maintenance in 2011 2.4% of GDP of the country were spent that made about $362 billion. Despite increase in expenses in absolute figures for the last 10 years, the share of expenses on infrastructure of the country remains below the maximum indicator in 3.1% of GDP reached in the 1960th years. The network of highways of the USA is the most extended road network in the world. Its total length is 6,506,204 km. She includes as roads of federal importance the system of interstate highways and roads of regular and local value. Despite almost double reduction of the railroads from 1928 years, the USA still possess the most extended network of the railroads in the world, which length is 226,427 km. The United States have the number of the airports and airfields, greatest in the world, with the firm runways. Total number of such airline hubs is 5194. The country is also the leader in the number of airfields with solo runways. Such objects there is 9885. The airspace over the USA is one of the most loaded on the planet. So, according to The Guardian, in 2012, 4 of the 10 most loaded airports in the world were American.
According to the research conducted by Hofstra University, about 70% of internal air transportation in the world are the share of the USA. In 2013, 58 billion U were manufactured in the USA.
Electric power. As of 2012, the country produces 18.8% of universal electricity generation and takes the second place in the world on this indicator, conceding only Turkey. In 2013, 67% of the electric power were developed by the thermal power plants using fossil fuel. 39% on coal, 27% on natural gas, 1% on oil. 19% of the electric power were produced by nuclear power plants, 7% hydroelectric power stations. 6% of power production, on the basis of renewable energy, 1.5% power plants on biofuel, 0.4% geothermal energy, 0.2% solar energy, 4.1% wind power.
Import of the electric power to the USA in 2012 made 47 billion U.
Considerable part of energy carriers of the USA is imported, but in connection with shale gas revolution, gradual reduction of volumes of the purchased oil is observed. If in 2005 the USA imported 10.1 million barrels a day, then in 2014, only 7.4 million barrels. At the same time in 2010-2013 purchases of oil of the USA reduced in Venezuela by 33.5%, in Nigeria for 76.4%, in Mexico for 26.1%. During this period, purchases of oil in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait were increased. Since 2015, gas companies of the USA began export of liquefied natural gas, and in December of the same year the legislative ban on export of oil was cancelled. Holidays. The fourth Thursday of November, Thanksgiving Day. December 25, Christmas. January 1, New Year. The third Monday of January, Day of Martin Luther King. The third Monday of February, Presidential Day, birthday of G. Washington. Last Monday of May, Day of Remembrance of Fallen. July 4, Independence Day. The first Monday of September, Labor Day. The second Monday of October, Day of Columbus, Columbus Day. November 11, Day of Veterans. Having begun with traditions of English cuisine of the 17th, 18th centuries which mixed up with some culinary traditions of the American Indians, American cuisine considerably changed within the last 3 centuries. Having become the synthesis of culinary traditions of the whole world, combining kitchens of various immigrant cultures. Unsavory East, the British cuisine and kitchens of other European countries is popular. In the south, the African and Mediterranean kitchens. Chicken meat, schnitzels, seafood dishes. In the southwest, Mexican cuisine. The faquet, taca, burrito. On the Midwest, Italian cuisine. Traditional and most recognizable American breakfast: fried eggs with bacon, pancakes, fritters with maple syrup are considered, and grain toasts are sandwiches. For example, with peanut paste and jam. The USA are the homeland of corn flakes, which usually use with milk. From drinks, coffee and orange juice are popular. The lunch, usually very easy, also consists of salads, paste with tomato sauce, fast food and various sandwiches. Dinner rather dense and various. On the first usually serve soups or broths. On the second there are meat and bird, sausage dishes or seafood. As a garnish various vegetables are used. Corn and asparagus, a cauliflower, potatoes, etc. Americans use bread and other flour products very little. Desserts are in great demand. Fruit with whipped cream, cakes, cookies. From drinks various fruit juice, sparkling water and also coffee. It is frequent with huge amount of cream, milk and sugar. And cold tea, which is usually served without sugar but with a lemon, are popular.
Half of the population of the country drinks at least 1 cup of coffee a day.
From alcoholic beverages, Americans prefer the Californian wines, bourbon, rum or local beer. For example, root beer.
In the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century, the American literature was created under the influence of the English and European literature.
Such writers as Nathaniel Hawthorne, Edgar Poe, Mark Twain, Henry David Thoreau and the poet Walt Whitman were the most considerable writers of the middle and the second half of the 19th century. Emily Dickinson, almost unknown during lifetime, now admits the major American poetess. The novels reflecting fundamental aspects of national experience and character, such as Moby Dick of Herman Melville, 1851. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, 1885. The Great Gatsby, Francis Scott Fitzgerald, 1925. And To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee, 1960. By right can be carried to the great American novel. The 11 citizens of the USA got the Nobel Prize on Literature, including Toni Morrison in 1993. William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway and John Steinbeck often are called one of the most influential writers of the 20th century.
Transcendentally led by Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, created the first great American philosophical movement.
After the end of Civil War, Charles Sanders Peirce, and then William James and John Dewey were leaders in development of pragmatism.
In the 20th century,
Quine and Richard Rorty's work, and is later than Noam Chomsky, put analytical philosophy into the forefront of the American philosophical scientific community. John Rawls and Robert Nozick's works led to revival of political philosophy. The rhythmical and lyrical directions of Afro-American music, under a great influence of the American music in general, differ from the European traditions. Elements from national idioms, such as blues, and the fact that now it is known how ancient music, were borrowed and transformed to the popular genres having world audience. Jazz was developed by musicians, such as Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington, at the beginning of the 20th century. Music of country appeared in the 1920th years, and rhythm and blues, in the 1940th. Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry were among pioneers of a rock and roll in the mid-50s. In the 1960th years, Bob Dylan, who was a man of the people, became one of the most famous authors of songs of America, and James Brown directed development of funk. Other American pieces of music include such musical genres recently as hip-hop and music of house. The American pop stars, such as Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson and Madonna, became the world celebrities. As well as modern performers, such as Taylor Swift, Britney Spears, Katy Perry and Beyoncé.
And also hip-hop performers Jay-Z, Eminem.
Songs of rock groups, such as Metallica, Eagles and Aerosmith, are among the most sold in the world. The special contribution to the fine arts to the USA was made. Photographers Ansel Adams, Dorothea Lange, Cindy Sherman. Artists Gilbert Stewart, John James O'Dubin, Thomas Garth Benton, Albert Berstedt, Mary Cassatt, Frederick Edwin Chirk, Thomas Cole, Edward S.
Curtis, Richard Dabincorn, Thomas Eakins, Helen Frankenthaler, Arshil Gorky, Marsden Hartley, Labama Gershfeld, Hans Hofmann, Winslow Homer, Georgia O'Keeffe, Lee Krasner, Franz Klein, Willem de Kooning, Roy Lichtenstein, Maurice Luz, John Marin, Agnes Martin, Jackson Pollock, Man Ray Robert Reichenberg, Mark Rothko, Albert Pinkham Ryder, Andy Warhol Wyatt.
Sculptors Alexander Calder, David Smith, Frank Stella. Illustrators Frederick Remington, Norman Rockwell, Newell Vay Converse.
Designers Louise Comfort Tiffany, Frank Lloyd Wright. The USA possesses extremely rich collections of the American art and collection of the Museum of the Modern Art where
Solomon Guggenheim's Museum in New York.
This museum has branches in Las Vegas, Venice, Berlin, Spain, the EU, Mexico and Lithuania.
The Museum Hirshkorna in Washington, the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco. The richest collections of models of foreign art are presented in Metropolitan Museum of New York, Art Institute of Chicago, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and also in the museums of San Francisco, Philadelphia, Houston. Hollywood, the most important symbol of cinema of the USA. The first ever movie was shown in New York in 1894 by means of Thomas Edison's kinetoscope. In 1895, display of the second movie, also in New York, took place. The USA was the country where it is the most best in the next decades the sound cinema developed.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, the film industry of the USA was based in Hollywood, where the most part of movies was made.
But in the 21st century, the number of the movies which aren't made there grew. Now numerous film studios work. The most known among them: 20th Century Fox, Columbia Pictures, DreamWorks Pictures, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Miramax Films, New Line Cinema, Paramount Pictures, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Universal Studios, Warner Brothers. The most known studios of animated films of the USA: Walt Disney Pictures, Pixar and DreamWorks Animation Studio. Some of the most famous directors for all history of the American cinema: John Ford and John Huston. The American soccer is the most popular sport in the USA. It is headed by the National Football League, NFL. It has the highest average attendance in comparison with any other sport. Millions of people around the world watch the American football. The baseball was proclaimed national sport of the USA since the end of the 19th century. Basketball, soccer and ice hockey, the leading professional team sports in the country. The soccer and basketball try to attract large audience. In 1994 in the country there took place the FIFA World Cup. The men's national team on soccer is qualified up to 1/8 World Cups. The women's team won the World Cup on soccer among women 3 times. The market for professional sport in the United States makes about $69 billion, that is approximately twice more than at all countries of Europe, the Middle East and Africa combined. The USA played 8 Olympic Games. The country won 2,400 medals at the Summer Olympic Games, more than any other, and 281 on winter. The second place after Norway.
The most popular individual sports, golf and auto racing, especially NASCAR.
Massachusetts media. Issue of the New York Times newspaper of August 19, 1918. Main article. Massachusetts media of the USA. TV and broadcasting. 4 main broadcasting companies in the USA are: National Broadcasting Company, NBC, Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, American Broadcasting Company, ABS, Fox. The cable television offers hundreds of channels focused on various social groups of the population. Americans listen to radio programs, on average, 2.5 hours a day.
In 1998 the number of radio stations of the USA grew to,
and the number of FM stations too. Besides, there are stations of public radio of the USA. Most of these stations belong to a management of the universities and public authorities, and are financed by the public or private foundations.
National Public Radio.
National Public Radio was registered in February 1970 according to the Law on Public Broadcasting of 1967. There is its television analog, PBS. NPR and PBS work independently of each other.
The national newspapers, the New York Times, USA Today and the Wall Street Journal are well known.
Newspapers generally rely on advertising revenues and subscriptions. Behind very few exceptions, newspapers in the USA are in a private property, or in the property of large networks, such as Gannett and McClatchy, which own tens or even hundreds of newspapers. The large cities often have alternative weeklies, in addition to daily newspapers. For example, in New York it is the Village Voice, and in Los Angeles, La Weekly. Education in the USA generally state-controlled and financed at 3 levels. Federal authorities, authorities of states and local authorities. There is a system of public schools. Higher educational institutions, mainly private, attract students and graduate students from around the world. Literacy level in the USA -97%, however according to a census of 2003, only is also more senior than 84.6% of people of 25 years had secondary education. 52.5% the higher education, and 27.3% the bachelor's degree. As of 2012 in the country nearly 12 million students, from them about 740,000 foreigners studied. The main language of education, English, except Puerto Rico, where official language, Spanish. The United States are the absolute leader in the number of Nobel laureates. As of 2012, 331 Nobel Prize was appropriated to citizens of the USA. The USA also steadily holds leadership in investments into research and development. In 2011, 34% of world expenses to this sphere fell to the share of the country.
The public and private sector spent $405.3 billion that made 2.7% of GDP of the country.
The expenses on healthcare per capita in US dollars corrected on PPS in comparison with other developed countries.
The Medical Center of the University of California of Ronald Reagan in Los Angeles, one of the leading hospitals.
The expected life expectancy increased in the United States with 75.2 in 1990 and makes 79.8 years.
The growing problem of obesity to the USA and improvement of health of the population of other states promoted rating downgrade of the country in the expected life expectancy since 1987 when she took the 11th place in the world.
Obesity indicators in the United States are one of the highest among other countries. About a third of adult population of the USA has obesity, a third more has excess weight. The incidence of obesity is the highest among industrialized countries and for the last 25 years rose more than twice. The type 2 diabetes connected with obesity is recognized medical experts as epidemic. Level of infantile mortality in the USA is 5.8 on 1,000 and takes the 56th place since the end among 225 countries.
In 2010, coronary heart disease, lung cancer, a stroke, a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and road accident resulted in the greatest number of the lost years of life in the USA. Waist pains, a depression, diseases of the skeletal and muscular device, neck pain and uneasiness became the reason of the greatest number of the years lost owing to violations of health.
The most harmful risk factors were bad food, smoking, obesity, high blood pressure, high content of sugar in blood, the lowered physical activity and alcohol intake.
Alzheimer's disease, abuse of drugs, a disease of kidneys, cancer and falling led to loss of the greatest number of additional years of life over the mortality rate per capita received in 1990.
Teenage pregnancy and the number of abortions in the USA is much higher than in other Western countries, especially among Black and Latin Americans. The USA is the world leader in the field of medical innovations.
According to poll of doctors of 2001, the United States carried out or substantially promoted creation of 9 of 10 major medical innovations since 1975, while the European Union and Switzerland together promoted creation of 5 of them.
Since 1966, Americans got more Nobel Awards on medicine than scientists from all other countries combined.
In 1989-2002, the quantity of the money invested in the private biotechnological companies in the USA was 4 times more than in Europe.
The healthcare system of the USA spends much more means than any other state, both at the rate of expenses per capita and as a percentage of VVV. Medical insurance in the United States is provided with efforts of the state and private sectors and isn't general. In 2014-13, 4% of the population of the country had no medical insurance.
A subject uninsured and not enough insured citizens, one of the most important political affairs of the country.
In 2006, Massachusetts became the first state where general medical insurance is entered. The federal law adopted at the beginning of 2010 by 2014 could create the system of almost general medical insurance through the whole country. However, the bill and final consequences of its acceptance remain a subject of disputes. For 2020, the United States Armed Forces are the most efficient in the world, winning first place in the rating of the strongest armies of the world. The military budget of the USA for 2020 made $684.6 billion. Armed forces include Ground Forces, Air Force, Navies, Space Forces, Coast Guard. As of April 2007, 1,426,700 people served in regular parts of armed forces, and 1,458,500 people in reserve formations. Crime in the USA annually decreases since 1991, when nearly 15 million crimes were committed, including 247,000 murders. 9.8 murders by 100,000 inhabitants. For 2014, the number of crimes fell up to 9 million, from which 14249 murders. 4.5 murders on 100,000 inhabitants. According to Bureau of Justice statistics for 2009, the number of prisoners per capita in the USA was 502 persons on 100,000 inhabitants. Total number of prisoners in 2009 was 1.6 million people. By 2012, the number of prisoners grew to 2 million people. That is a world record. 730 prisoners are the share of each 100,000 citizens of the USA.
According to Prison Policy Initiative for March 2020, in prisons there are nearly 2.3 million people. That makes about 0.7% of the population of the USA.
Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.